Hello people, this is Nico, and today we will be talking about the latest video from Sargon, whereabout he described the basis of what I call the MGTOW idea and my few minor disagreements with it. In this video, Sargon explains his ideas as to why men have now moved away from women. It is clear that he thinks that feminism is at fault, and he describes the reasons why. He says that women said that they no longer need men and that men need to be needed in order to be around. If a man is not needed, he no longer has a place in a woman's life, and as such, men are not interested in impressing women anymore. The purpose for a man, according to Sargon, is to be needed in a woman's life. Therefore, if he's not needed, he will not compete. He will be a man of moderate means, and he will be perfectly happy doing just that. Now, let me play you a section from that video, and the full video is of course found in the description below for your entertainment. Sargon definitely comes from a point of traditionalism, let's say, but I will not judge him on that. That's simply his beliefs, and we need to appreciate that before we go into why he says what he says.
The great irony of feminism, of course, is actually that it did free men from the burden of being the head of the household, and now you get loads of articles like this, wondering why so many professional millennial women are unable to find dateable men. And to answer the hundreds of articles written by women asking why I can't find a man, there are obviously hundreds of articles written by women trying to explain why they can't find a man. And you know, maybe there is a small nugget of truth to each one of these articles. Like, for example, with this one, it's not that he's just not that into you, it's that there aren't enough of him, as in him being well-educated men with well-paying careers, better than the women who are looking to date. Because fundamentally, women don't seem to understand that men are not attracted to the same things women are attracted to. For example, here, where the question is, who's a man more likely to go for? Is it a woman who's smart, independent, and together, or a woman who doesn't seem to have that much going on and seems to need a man and a relationship? The answer, of course, is B, because, believe it or not, men are not robots, and actually need to be needed. This was, in fact, the raison d'etre of men. This was what men were for. To be needed by women. And now women have said, well, we don't need you. Okay, that's fine. And that's fine, but don't be surprised when men start living for themselves. And don't be surprised when living for themselves means being men of modest means. Men who aren't that bothered about being incredibly highly educated. They're not that bothered about making a whole lot of money, because they don't have anyone to support but themselves. So they get their minimum wage job, minimal hours a week, they get their beer and their Xbox, and they hang out with their buddies, and they're happy.
There is definitely an element of truth in what Sargon is saying. Since feminism came to the picture and their version of so-called equality, along with the continuous indoctrination of women about the useless role that men play in society and in families, we had a number of effects. And as MGTOW, we have talked about them quite a bit. Fatherless homes, hostile working environments, false rape accusations, the state taking the role of the husband in the place of a man, and increasingly the demonization of everything male and masculine. All those things were started by feminism and then continued by women at large. But I think it's not feminism that has caused this. I think it's equality that caused this to a greater extent than feminism has. Feminism may have brought forward equality for women, although I would think that the way that things were going, equality would have been achieved anyway, but you know, call me a dreamer. Feminism, however, is not the core corporate for the reason that men are now going their own way. Women are. The basis of assuming that feminism is the only reason that men are moving away from women is something that's completely false, because it denies the evidence brought forward by evolutionary psychology and the basis of hypergamy. Hypergamy is to always look for a better mate than what you already have. Now, in this world of equality and the continuous assist that women get in almost every area of life, women have now become high achievers. Thus, they want men who are higher achievers than them, men who are more socially adept than them, and that is becoming increasingly difficult to do so. Sure, there are pickup artists out there who describe the basis of inner game and alpha qualities that women still find attractive despite what they tell you. But when it comes to building a family, a man of better means than her is what a woman really wants. Now, I would consider me quite privileged in being able to hang out with women that are high achievers, making fuckloads of money, you know, doctors, lawyers, etc. And I know that for women like this, no man is ever good enough. That, along with their overinflated sense of ego, the narcissism that goes rampant, no man ever comes close to being good enough for them. And that is because of this very plain reason, that women simply confuse their attractiveness to the opposite sex with the attractiveness of men. What I mean by that is that a woman's attractiveness is measured as simply as hip-to-waist ratio, and maybe when you get to know a woman better, maybe the way that she behaves in a relationship. A kind of like hot to crazy axis that has been talked about before. Now, the women think that the fact that they now have a higher degree, that they're making more money, that they're more educated, is somehow making them more attractive to the opposite sex. And that is simply not the case. Surely it's interesting to be able to discuss at length with a woman as to the deep mysteries of life in the universe, but if that woman looks like a land whale, I'm not going to want to fuck her or date her. Now, if you reverse the situation, and the man is what is a land whale, but is making lots of money, is interesting and funny, some women may sleep with him. Money and status simply are not as important qualities for women as they are for men, because simply that's not how we men think, and that's not what attracts us. But confused as women are of their self-importance, they confuse what they find attractive to what men find attractive, and that's why no man is ever good enough. That's why women keep mentioning of men having inferiority complexes, because they simply don't understand what's going on. In actual fact, there are no inferiority complexes. It's simply that women have superiority complexes coming from an overestimated sense of ego, self-importance, and an incomplete understanding of men. That, along with the ease and availability of sex for the many men that still want to have sex and have made something of themselves, these men just find it increasingly difficult to settle down, especially with the dangers of doing so brings to the table. If a man has been burned one too many times, or if a man keeps having to deal with a woman that constantly demands more and more and more of him, and is looking for the next best thing all the time, which again is the basis of hypergamy, which is now not being put in check in the basis of religion laws or marriage restrictions or even punishment for just sleeping around, then that man has no real protection. If we assume that the men that want to have sex, and there are many of them, can just simply have sex with as many women as they can, and have tallies that would be unheard of for many of my father's generation, is it that unreasonable to assume that men will not be willing to settle down? Is it that unreasonable to assume that men will not want to stick around, especially when they can lose everything and be replaced by a dog, a stepfather, the state, and have their lives being left in ruin afterwards? It is not feminism that caused this. It is gynocentrism and hypergamy. And I think this is the natural evolution of the social norm once women were given the ability to work and create resources for themselves in a world of almost no danger. Very few men see any reason to help women now because there are no perceived dangers. Even fewer men see any reason to engage with women altogether, even to form a family, since most of women get pregnant anyway in some way or another. Like you said, in the past women needed men, and men like to be needed, because by being needed and being essential you receive some kind of respect by being present in that woman's life. Your well-being, your health, your happiness had a direct result on the quality of life of your woman and your children, but that time is long gone. It's gone forever, and men have been resourceful enough to avoid commitments and actually have maintained a level of happiness which is now higher than that of women's. Something that has never been the case and probably was never the case in the history of mankind. Women simply need men. Men do not need women to be happy. That's what the results of the data suggests. And when a man does not receive respect and only receives abuse, challenges, gets no benefits from working his 9 to 5 and returns home to a moaning and unappreciative woman, the juice is simply not worth the squeeze. This is not simply the result of feminism. This is not the result of 100 years of indoctrination from feminism. This is simply hypergamy gone rampant across the world without limits and without boundaries. Surely boundaries might improve things a little bit, but the men have now seen the true nature of the beast and will surely never return to it. They will continue to have fun and engage with women that are still sexually attractive, and they will have sex with them, and then stop being with them just as soon as their body has reached the limit of its use. I find it sad that this is the current climate, but this is how the future is for many of the young men out there and the young women out there, and I talk to many of them. Having a family is a very noble cause, of course, but the majority that have a family within the confines of a marriage will not have a family, and for a good number of years will lose their earnings and their quality of life. I'm speaking for men here, of course. So for those men, and every man out there, the juice is simply not worth the squeeze. Thank you very much for listening.